Welcome to the e-commerce podcast with me, your host, Matt Edmondson. The e-commerce podcast is all about helping you deliver e-commerce wow. And I am super excited with today's guest, who is David Perry from Carro. Now, one of the things that I am wanting to start doing here on the podcast is give a shout out to past guests and episodes. And given that we are today talking about how to level up your search for ideal influencers, today I thought it would be great to mention past podcasts. So here we go. Cody Whittick, why giving away stuff always leads to more sales and influencer marketing. Check out that episode alongside David Mornio, why you should be using micro influencer marketing and how to do it properly. Two great episodes that time with this topic, and a big shout out to both David and also to Cody. Yes, absolutely. Now, this episode is brought to you by the e-commerce cohort, which helps you deliver e-commerce wow to your customers. What is cohort, I hear you say? Well, I'm sure you've come across a bunch of folks stuck with their e-commerce businesses, or they've got siloed into working on just one or two areas of their business and miss the whole big picture. Well, enter the e-commerce cohort to solve this particular problem. It's a lightweight membership group with guided monthly sprints that cycle through all the key areas of e-commerce. The sole purpose of cohort is to provide you with clear, actionable jobs to be done so you'll know what to work on and with the support to get those things done. So whether you're just starting out in e-commerce or if you're like me, a well-established e-commercer, then I can encourage you definitely to check it out at ecommercecohort.com as it's gearing up for its founding member launch. So there's some incredible offers that you can take advantage of, and you can also email me directly at matt@ecommercepodcast.net with any questions, because let me tell you, we are super proud of the e-commerce cohort. Yes, we are. So let's jump into today's special guest, David Perry, who is the CEO of Carro, which is a new e-commerce partnership framework. And it is remarkable, let me tell you. With over 30,000 Shopify brands using the service, Carro helps brands get attention, sales, and new customers by partnering with other brands in the network. Sony PlayStation acquired Perry's previous company. Can you believe that? And he knows what he's doing, right, to establish the leadership in the future of streaming video games from the cloud, a service now called PlayStation Now. Now called PlayStation Now? It's called PlayStation Now. Anyway, David is no stranger to success. That's the bottom line. That's what we're trying to tell you here. He has been one of the driving forces behind some of the most innovative gaming technology to date. We do get into this a little bit, actually. His work has helped shape the future of gaming as we know it. So you can't wait to see how he's applied his learning to e-commerce and Carro and all the clever things it does. Stay tuned. Here is my conversation with David. So, David, thank you so much for joining me on the e-commerce podcast. Great to have you in at least in the virtual room. I'm still flabbergasted by the technology that allows me to see you from the other side of the world and talk very crisp. And you were mentioning before we started recording that you've got AI voice processing on your audio feed.
Yeah, I mean, it's really stunning. My mother lives in England, and so back in the old days, I would call her up, and it would cost me around $14 here in the US just to call her up and say hello. And here we are now with AI, voice cleaning, so you can't hear me typing or the dog's barking at me. And you've got this free data stream. It's ridiculous. I mean, it is pretty amazing to think about what it's going to be like in the future, right? What are they going to do next?
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping for teleportation. That would be my dream.
Yeah, I think Meta's working on it, right? They want to. We're all going to be sitting here in VR helmets, and that will be it.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
We will never move again.
Just sit there.
You know what's really funny is that actually happened to me. I was in bed one night and I put on a VR headset, and I was at a rave, and there was all this confetti falling and lasers and people dancing all around me. And then I took the VR headset off, and I was back in the bedroom, and I'm like, I'm going back to the rave. I think that's what VR is going to do. It's just going to be like, it's better there than it is in here. So.
Yeah, and there's all those movies that have come out about this, haven't they? I mean, just creating these sort of virtual world environments where it's much better. The one that I've enjoyed not recently, it's a few years old now, is the Ready Player One movie. I don't know if you saw that, based on the book, and I liked it because of all the 80s, references. Basically, it was basically an 80s film sort of brought forward. But yeah, you can see it coming. You can see it coming now. I mean, my kids are glued to their phones as it is. Give them a virtual reality headset. That's it. They're never coming out, right?
Yeah, no, I was one time there was a person explaining about some sort of temple space in Syria, some kind of very religious space, and this person kept walking around me. It was actually annoying me because, again, I was sitting in bed going, "Stop walking around me! I can't, I just want to see this." And then he said, "Oh, but we're going to go into this room now, in VR that people can't go into. So wait, if I fly there, I can't see this, but I can from my bed."
Wow.
Like, what is that? That idea of access is also very interesting, right?
Yeah, that's incredible, isn't it? That's incredible. So basically, is your life just doing VR from bed, raves and temples?
Yeah, that's all I do. I just go to bed and do VR and connect to the Matrix. That's what I do.
Connect to the Matrix. That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Dear. Well, I mean, I could wax lyrical about this all night. It'd be quite an interesting conversation. But let's sort of turn our attention to the main topic while we're here. We're going to talk about influencer marketing. We're going to talk about your company and what it does. We're going to talk about the different ideas and thoughts that you have around this whole thing. But one of the things that I remember from our pre-call when we were discussing this was your journey is it's not a traditional journey, is it? From sort of where you were to where you are.
No, definitely not. I grew up in Northern Ireland, and I got very interested in video games, but video games wasn't really a thing there. And so for me to actually really get moving, I had to move to England. And so I ended up leaving high school just to go straight to England and start making video games. And that worked out great. I mean, it was such a risk because what the heck was the video game industry at that point? The games were the Sinclair ZX81 was out with little black and white graphics.
They're the video games we're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, no, I was making games for the ZX81, 1K of memory, right? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. The whole game was 1K. Today, an icon on the screen is 4K. So it's just an icon. We somehow put an entire video game. We could put multiple video games for that. So that was, and that's just how insane it's been. But the England was definitely a great choice because in the world of video games, a lot of people were playing with consoles where they just had joysticks. They didn't have keyboards. In England, the devices we had were very much focused on all having keyboards, pretty much. Amstrads, Sinclairs, of course, Commodore 64, VIC-20, things like that. They were all keyboard based. So we're all learning how to program. And they call them bedroom coders because there were so many of them at the time. And so I was one of those bedroom coders. But I ended up realizing, it's going really well in England. But I got an offer to do a contract in California. And when you live in England, the idea, as a kid, the idea of California is pretty romantic, right? And so I'm on my way. And so once I got there and I fell in love with the place, then I didn't end up going back. And so ultimately, that's how I ended up in the US. But the video game industry just exploded. And so I was riding that wave. What I learned from the industry is branding was very important. And that's sort of a bit of a theme in my career is I always want to do the things I want to do, but at the end of the day, you have to sometimes just go, what is really going on? And what I found is when you watch kids purchasing games, their hands tend to go towards the things they've heard about. It's just psychology, right? Yeah. So their hands like this, and then boom, they go to some brand that you've heard of. And so I realized that by doing branded games, it would help my career a lot. And so that's where I focused. I ended up, the first one I did was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, went straight to #1.
No way.
And it's like a hit-driven industry. So when you get a hit, people want to work with you. And so, I did the Terminator for James Cameron. I did Aladdin for Disney, the Matrix for the Wachowskis and Warner Brothers.
Wow.
And so, each time you do a sort of a hit brand thing, your career just goes mental. You're doing lots of speeches, lots of presentations. I even had a funny one when we were almost done with the Matrix. I got a call, and this guy's like, Michael Jackson would like you to drive up to Neverland and let him play the Matrix before it launches. Is that possible? And I'm like, I'm on my way. So I go up there, and I get to spend time with him. We end up agreeing to start to work on a video game together. So it was crazy how the game industry, when I first joined and when I first moved to America, most of the people who run companies are old and they don't like the video game industry. They had no interest. They never grew up with it. But all those people have moved on, and now everyone in every position, every sports celebrity, every movie star, all of these people have grown up through the ages of having arcade machines and things like that. And so the game industry is welcome everywhere now that it wasn't before. And so I got to enjoy all of that. My last company was bought by Sony PlayStation. The one before that was bought by Atari. And so I got an Atari business card for a while, which is the best business card ever. Wherever you go. I remember once, a funny thing is, when you in the US, if you want to be able to travel very easily, they have a special sort of card for that. You have to go and get interviewed by the immigration people, and they want to do an interview, and you have to get prepared for this. And so I went to see them, and they saw my Atari business card, and they just immediately started gushing about Atari. And then it was over. The meeting was over, and I'm like, you didn't even ask a question.
The easiest way to get it. Yeah. Wow.
Just time and time again, it was just such a valuable piece of intellectual property. But ultimately, the game industry, did sort of help me out a lot. But I ended up sort of semi-retiring and building this huge man cave with woodworking and metalworking and 3D printing and photo studio and arcade machines, everything. And that's where I was going to be spending my days. And I was so looking forward to that. But somehow I got very interested when I was taking pictures. Nobody really cared about them unless I took pictures of social media influencers. And then you get lots and lots of feedback. Everyone wants to meet them. And so I realized the power of these people is just so profoundly different, which is exactly like the branding I'd learned about before, which is, it's just such, I could make a game called Jumpy Boy and nobody cares, but if I make something like the Matrix, then boom, you've got a number one hit. Yeah. And so
this is the same game, just the name on the box changes everything,
absolutely,
right?
It's everything. So it's the same thing with the influencers. The influencers are much more powerful than I think people really understand, because a lot of the celebrities today, like they might have made a movie or something, that's great, and they're really famous. But these influencers with 20 million followers, we have some 26 million followers, are talking to their audience every day. That's just such a profoundly different situation when you have that level. They know them like their friends, meaning they know their dogs and what they eat and where they are for vacation right now. You know what I mean? They know they're on the beach right now because they just saw the post. And so it's kind of fascinating to sort of see that space, and I just couldn't resist it. And so I ended up I met an entrepreneur, his name's Jason Goldberg, and the two of us decided to have a go at this. And the idea was to create authentic influencer marketing. That was our first thought. And what does that mean? Well, that means that instead of trying to sort of trouble influencers, like imagine you go online and just start troubling influencers.
That's how most people do it, right?
Yeah, it's not interesting to them.
Excuse me, Mr. Influencer, will you please repost my post, or can I send you a product?
Well, it's usually worse. They usually think of them like a billboard. So here's what I want you to say. Here's what I don't trust you to come up with what you're going to say. So I'm going to tell you what to say. I'm going to tell you when to say it. You can't use any of my competitors' products anymore. You're going to post it at this time, yada, yada, yada. And it's, at the end of the day, that becomes kind of, they're misunderstanding what these are. These are content creators that are incredibly successful because they're so good at it, and they're actually better than the brand. The brand doesn't have the same following that they have, and so to some extent, that's the thing, is that if you can. So what we did is we thought maybe there's a way we can help work out which influencers like which brands, and we found a way to do that. And so ultimately, the result was when you reach out to an influencer that likes your brand, it's very different, the response. It's, because your makeup is on their face. Like they love your makeup. They buy it all the time. And now you're reaching out to them like, oh my God, I love your brand. I've been buying your products for ages. Yeah. That's an authentic relationship. And so we built a platform called Carro, Carro, on Shopify for all the brands on Shopify. There's about 2 million brands on there. Mm-hmm. And the idea was just to make that absolutely effortless. And Facebook Meta ended up writing an article on it. They said it was a success story because it was authentic. And I think that's the key word that you really want to think about.
Well, that was the word that jumped out to me when you when you said influencer marketing. Everyone's used the phrase influencer marketing, but then you've thrown this word authentic, which is quite I want to say trendy word, maybe slightly overused word a few years ago. Everyone's got to be authentic now. As an excuse for being lazy in some respects. But do you know what I mean? It was this kind of fad, wasn't it? But so when you talk about authentic influencer marketing, is that what you're talking about? You're talking about actually reaching out to influencers that really care about your brand, that are genuinely, authentically interested in what you're doing as a company.
Yeah, that's the core piece of it. The response is night and day different. One of the things that happens today is when an influencer writes about something that they've been treated like a billboard and they're not happy about it, they end up deleting the post the minute they legally can. So literally when the contract says this must stay up X months or whatever, then it's deleted immediately. And that's because they don't want it in their feed. Yeah. And sometimes you'll see them take a picture where they put their face by something and just take the picture, which I think is funny. Like they're so not interested. It's like, just take the damn picture because they just have to do it. They don't want to do it, but they're just doing it because they have to. That's what we're trying to get away from. But the reason it's important is if I just went to a marketing conference on the weekend called Geek Out, and it's a room full of marketing experts that give speeches, and I was like a fly on the wall, just like it's like drinking through a fire hose, right? Because when you get into the right rooms, these people actually share what's really going on. This is not some big mega conference where everyone's like trying to protect what they're up to. These are the guys literally telling each other, here's what I'm doing and here's how I'm doing it. And this is what's working. This is not working. And each of them have a slide, which is the iOS 14 slide and how that broke everything. Yeah. And so when iOS 14 came out and Apple started, stopped tracking, the idea was it's great for privacy, but it really hurts.
Really hurts the advertising.
Tracking. So they realize that influencer marketing is going to become just a critical piece. And so what's happening is influencer marketing is about to change because it's becoming social commerce, and social commerce means that you're actually transacting in the feed. And so that you're seeing that today, but what you don't realize generally is you're just seeing the beginning of it. Like these are just the first people to get to do it, and they're actually in a way restricting access and they're rolling it out. But in the future, you can just assume that the purchasing you do will be in the feed. And the idea is to make it effortless, right?
Yeah.
So if you've already got Shop Pay, which most people have at this point, once you've paid, then completing the transaction is like click, and you're done. And so this is an old concept, but years ago, it's funny, Bill Gates wrote a book. I think it was called Business at the Speed of Thought or something like that. But the idea was that you're able to transact on an impulse basis within your social media is really great for brands. And so that's the future of how they work with influencers.
It'll be interesting. I mean, we've seen it, I guess, in the last year or two, haven't we, with shopping on Instagram? You can start to do some of these features now, and Pinterest is getting a bit more interested in it. And it seems to me, if I was going to be a social platform like Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and I was the owner of that, I would be looking at Amazon going, well, 1 in 2 transactions are going through their platform. Yeah, I'm gonna screw that right up. I'm going to go and get a whole bunch of those transactions because we can now do this on the social platform, and it becomes another marketplace. It becomes another channel for anybody selling, doesn't it? But then it does change then how you do marketing on that platform, or how you think about your brand and product on that platform.
Oh yeah, it's a totally different world, and so the marketing teams are going to need to evolve to embrace this properly. So what happened to us was we realized this is great. We've worked out how to get attention for brands, but sales are even more important. So what can we do to get sales? And sales we came up with this idea of, imagine you're at a marketing conference and every single presentation talks about trying to get cost of advertising down. They call it the ROAS, the return on ad spend.
Yeah.
So can you get that down? What can you do? What are my techniques and all the rest of it? Well, what we did as a company is we said, look, if you get brands working together, we have 30,000 brands installed on our platform right now. Together, they have 350 million visitors a month. That's quite a lot of people, And when we get to 60,000 brands, what would that be? 700,000 people a month, or 700 million people a month.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. So what if you make a product like a helmet, can you put your helmet into a bike store and who has their own traffic and get their traffic for free? And so that's where our heads went. Wouldn't it be cool if you just partnered with people and then you get their traffic for free forever, right? For free forever, as long as that relationship lasts.
Yeah.
And the more partnerships you create, skateboard stores, anyone that needs helmets anywhere, you're going to end up getting their traffic for free. It is literally, it's funny because even at a marketing conference, nobody talked about that. That was not a subject of conversation yet. I think it will be. I think you're going to hear a lot more about that in the next 12 months.
I think you are. And I mean, again, this whole idea behind what you're doing, I mean, I do want to get into that and sort of pick your brains about it a little bit. The ability for the guy to sell the bike helmets on the bike shop, and we'll talk about that. But before we get into it, because it's really useful stuff, now seems to be an appropriate time to hear from this week's show sponsor.
Hey there, are you a business owner? Here at Aurion Digital, we know firsthand that running an e-commerce business can be really hard work. As the online space gets more competitive, it is becoming even more challenging to stay ahead of the curve. We totally get it. So we want to help you succeed by offering a wide range of services, from fulfillment, marketing, customer service, and even coaching and consulting, just so that you can do what matters most. Save yourself the time and the money and let us handle the day-to-day tasks. This way, you can run your business without having to worry about the boring stuff. So what do you say? Are we a good fit for each other? Come check us out at auriondigital.com and let us know what you think.
Well, big shout out, big thanks to our show sponsors. I'm back here with David talking about all things. So before we sort of started on this track of influencer marketing, buying on different platforms, and we've sort of moved on slightly now to, let's say you manufacture bike helmets. You can take advantage of the traffic which is on that bike website over there and that skateboard website over there for free, as long as you maintain that relationship and sell your product through those websites, which is, if I'm understanding this right, David, that's where your platform comes in. This is a sort of an idea that I guess you've sort of joined dropshipping and social media sort of influencers ideas and a few other bits and bobs. You've put them into a big shaker, shook them up, and out has come this sort of really interesting idea. Why don't you explain it in layman's terms? Yeah.
So this first idea is, can you push your products into someone else's traffic? That means when they sell your helmet, what we'll do is we'll actually just, because everyone's installed on our platform, when the helmet sells, we can actually generate the order for you, the helmet company, and you can do the shipping. Why does that matter? Well, it's pretty cool if the helmet never moves until it sells. Yeah. So today, the market isn't very efficient because someone has to try to guess which helmets are going to sell, buy them from the people who create the helmets, move them through freight to some warehouse somewhere, have people touching it, which costs money, storing it, insuring it, and then when it sells, ship it from that location. The idea, which means it gets shipped twice, right? So it's been freighted and shipped and handled. So the concept is it saves more margin. But we basically broke this puzzle down into two key pieces. One was it would be really great if there was a way to get attention for your products and get sales that are effectively coming out of nowhere. You didn't have this channel before. This wasn't technically possible. We call it virtual wholesale. So you're virtually putting your products into other people's stores. But the second part of it is, let's say you're the bike store. Well, you just got helmets, right? You didn't have those helmets before. Now you do. You might have bought a few different colors in the standard sizes, but with this technology, because we're actually literally wiring the two stores together, what's actually occurring is now you have all the helmets and all the colors and all the sizes instantly without paying a dollar. And so when you've done that for the first time and you go, wait a minute, what? It actually works. Like you have suddenly all the helmets and all the colors and all the sizes, and you can sell them. So then you start going, well, what else do you have? Do you have gloves by any chance? Because we need some gloves. And do you have any lights or locks and they start adding category after category. So some bike stores have 10 new categories because of this, because they realize that there's one called State Bicycles, a great example. If you go there, you won't be able to tell what we're doing and what we're not doing on their store. They just have tons of categories, right? And so that's what's so cool about it, is because it's creating this partnership. Our tagline is sell more together, but why does it matter is because your average order value increases if you add a helmet and gloves and a lock, right, with the bike. If your average order value increases, it actually gives more money to your marketing team. So it costs, that's the basic equation of e-commerce, is what does it cost to get a customer, right? And how much money did you make from them when they arrived? It better be more.
There needs to be a positive differential.
There are tons and tons of e-commerce businesses that everyone that buys helps kill their company more, right? Because everyone that they bring in for I don't know, $50 and they spend $20, it's game over. So what can we do to help increase that average order value? And the answer is by adding other products. And when brands start to get creative with this, we've seen some really clever ones. There's a brand called BlendJet who make a blender, and it's a cool blender that you blend right before you drink. So that's cool. But they wanted to sell what goes in the blender. So they created a marketplace, and we connected them to companies like Oatly who do oat milk. So you can have all these different ingredients. They didn't have refrigerated warehousing, so they're not going to ever have all of this stuff. Especially from big brands like that, the ability to suddenly have all of that in their own marketplace is very cool. But then it's funny. I see this time and time again with business but what about offering a subscription to your favorite things that go in the blender? And people will pay for that because they actually want. The one thing I learned from the game industry, people are always looking for the easier way to do something. They want to save time. Like, do you want to walk 2 miles or 10 miles or 20 miles, or do you want to ride a horse? Right. And, they want the horse. And so that's basically, if you can make it easier for people, they will do it. But if you sign a subscription, that's worth way more as a lifetime value or as an average order value. So it's the kind of thing that we're loving, sort of seeing how people do this. Another example is, let's say Halloween's coming or Valentine's Day. What if you wanted to make a pop-up store in your own store with lots of products dedicated to that idea without paying a single cent for any of it, right? So now you have all these products which you've curated for your audience for that period of time, and you can take the store down whenever the holiday's over. But in reality, it's cost you nothing. And so another example is Black Friday. I live by the coast in California, and currently there's a really bad supply problems in the ports, like trying to get ships into the ports. And so they were all bunched up in Long Beach. And there was aerial shots which were incredibly embarrassing to the government because you could see all these ships just piled up. And all they've done is spread them out down the coast. So now you see these ships all the way down the coast. But those supply chain problems are real. Like, that's a real issue for brands. So imagine something doesn't arrive. Well, what are you going to do? Like, you've got out of stock all over your website. That's terrible. So you can augment that by adding brands from partners or products from partners.
I mean, in some respects, it sounds really fascinating. I'm the guy with the bike shop, and now it's becoming really easy to go and get products to put on my website that I don't have to have in stock. But I can put all of those products with some kind of technical wizardry. The whole interface becomes straightforward and easy. And I get that. I understand that. I guess one question that is immediately obvious here, David, is how is that different to, say, drop shipping? So me going and getting, bike helmets, just taking pictures off, I don't know, Alibaba or something like that, AliExpress, I don't know, and putting those on my website.
Well, there's a couple of steps. So first of all, regular drop shipping tends to come from China. It's just the way it is, right? And it can be weeks before something shows up, and it usually shows up in a little plastic bag that's being beat up crazily, and the product is unbranded. It's you're buying a blue hat or something like that. That's not generally what motivates people. They're usually in love with a certain brand. There's a brand they really care about, and they like that company. They want to keep using their products. And so what we've done effectively is get real brands to actually work together, not unknown, unnamed. It's not just a case of just trying to sell white socks. That's more where Amazon's heading, I believe, which is they're going towards what are the cheapest white socks you can possibly create, and we'll have them shipped directly from China, and we'll put a Amazon private label on them, and no one will be able to compete against us. That's where Amazon, I think, is actually headed. And so this idea,
a really interesting prediction. Watch this space. I have to say I have some resonance with that, and it's becoming more and more like that. And it's been interesting with your supply chain issues, especially in the States, that it has hit Amazon hard. That and COVID, they've not been able to staff their warehouses and get stuff out. There seems to be quite a big shift in people's thinking now about Amazon. Which I find quite fascinating. So you can see the problems on the horizon, and the problems are already there, and people are kind of going, yeah, okay, now we're sort of paying a bit more attention to them, aren't they? Really?
Well, what I say to brands is, I found an item on that Amazon is selling, which is leather stamps. So if you want to stamp the letter A into leather, little brass things that you can hit with a hammer, and you got a letter A. Amazon now makes their own leather stamps. And so what I say to brands is, whatever category you're in, how safe do you feel now that they decided to go after leather stamps?
It's a very good question. They make vacuum
cleaners.
Feeling
safe now, you're doing really good with your white shirts. Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah, all the best.
They're on their way. And what they do, which is different. So in the United States, we have a store called Costco. That is just enormous. Yeah. And Costco is so successful. Internally, they're actually making their own products, and they put a brand on it called Kirkland. And so it's perfectly okay. You're walking around Costco and there's Kirkland all over the place. And that's fine. Amazon started the same path. So you saw Amazon Basics and Amazon Essentials, and that's fine. So they were doing the same thing. But then they got kind of smart about it, and they started creating things like Presto and Presto toilet paper and things like that. So they've got all these private labels. They have a whole list of them now. So you can't tell anymore. You actually, if you're shopping on Amazon,
now, isn't it? Yeah.
You cannot tell if you're buying Amazon products. They are not signaling that to you. And so that's why. So the second thing that's interesting is they have all of the reviews. And so you go, what's the big deal about that? Well, hold on. Imagine you're in coffee presses and they want to do a coffee press. What they do is they send the reviews to their manufacturer and say, fix all of these issues. And we'll bring it out for, half the price. So, because we're going to order a lot, right? So ultimately they end up using the reviews to give them leverage over the people that are already there, and then they reduce it. This is what I'm seeing and hearing is concern that I have personally no issue with it, because that's Amazon's platform. They can do whatever they like.
Yeah. They've got the data. Why would they not? It's a business.
But if you're a brand trying to build your own customer base, etc., you can't actually do it on Amazon because they own all the customers. And so that's really where the story goes with us, is we had this epiphany that's occurred with influencers too. You go, hold on a minute. So let me get this straight. Influencers have a lot of followers, but they don't have customers. They have followers, right? Followers are great, but customers are better. And then you go, well, which influencers have customers? Kim Kardashian does. She's got Skims, which is worth over $3 billion. Rihanna of Fenty Beauty, over $2 billion. She's found a way to get her followers to turn into customers that she owns, right? And that idea of having customers, I think, is the game changer. That's the big chess move that's coming. So what that means is today, I would say less than 1% of influencers have customers. They've been, for all these years, they've been sending all their clicks off to somebody else. Who's more than happy to keep all their customers. So Amazon has been getting influencer clicks for years, and again, all those just become Amazon customers. But even the merch deals. So I've talked to influencers, and they're like, "Oh, it's so exciting! I've got a merch deal," and I'm like, but you don't have any customers, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the merch company keeps all the customers. So this is going to change. And the way it's going to change, again, is social commerce. So the influencers will sell in their feed. The one thing they're missing today is the technology to allow them to actually keep the customer. And to do that, you actually only need to sign up for Shopify. And Shopify, is $30 a month. We're working on ways to get that down to less, like $10 for what we need to do. And ultimately, the idea is just to give them somewhere to store their customers. They just need a storage bay to put all their customers into so they can. Now imagine you are great at selling e-bikes and you've sold 100,000 of them. You become so valuable in the e-bike industry, right? Because now you're the only influencer with a database of actual customers that buy e-bikes, right? And so they're literally going to squabble over it. So I see a bit of a Wild West coming where you're going to be staking out ground as influencers, and brands are going to be fighting over being because the one thing with influencers is you can't put in 20 e-bikes because that's not authentic, right? You have to stand by the ones that you really like. And so there's going to be a whole, think about that in every dimension for every product category. It's going to be.
Oh, you totally can. And to be honest with you, as you mentioned e-bikes, David, I did 3 videos, I think, maybe 4, I can't remember, 3 or 4 videos a few years ago on a particular e-bike. It was a small little company at the time. It's blown up now. And I really like their bike. Well, those combined views, well over 100,000 views on YouTube. A lot of questions, a lot of people interested. I'm like, well, if I'd have listened to you, I'd have got a Shopify store. I'd have put those e-bikes on the store using your system because it's the brands that I was interested in. Put the bikes on there. I don't have to pay for stock. The bike companies are going to ship them. I just have to review them, keep pumping the content out there. Well, there's a fair chunk of cash in an e-bike. So, it would have been a reasonable source of income to make. So I can see what you're talking about. So you've got this system which bridges now brands with influencers, as well as bridging brands with other brands who are selling similar products. But I see where you're going now, that actually influencers themselves will now start to set up their own stores and retain their customers and sell much more than doing what we used to do on YouTube videos. If you thought you're going to get a few flicks, this was recorded with this camera, here's an Amazon link, and you get 3p if one ever was bought or something like that. That's really clever.
Isn't that an interesting question for an influencer? Like, are you serious? Like, do you really want to be an influencer? Like, if you're serious, you got to change gears. It's time. You can't just keep doing that forever. You need to, if you want to end up with an exit, right? Like you own something, you've created an asset of value. If you're just sending all your clicks somewhere else, affiliate deals aren't the way the way to go for the future. And so
it's really powerful. I can see why you're excited by it, and I can see why other people are excited by the possibility. As long as you can keep getting the brands on board and keep connecting the influencers, I can see this is, it's a great win-win scenario. A great win-win scenario.
Yeah, so there's another thought is if you have a bunch of brands together, in our case, we have 30,000. So if you have that many together, it creates an organism. And what my sort of dream is, we keep saying sell more together, but I'd love them to actually help each other too. In every group, there's someone in the room that's really good at everything. So like there's someone in there who's just a Jedi at shipping, can you please help the rest, with their shipping? Can you please help the other people get better product photography? Because we can grow together if we do that. And so that would be my ultimate dream for this collection of brands, is they actually start to collaborate with each other. And the reason that's interesting is if you're on Amazon and Amazon turns on you, then, when you leave, what are you going to do? Are you going to buy every click from Facebook and Google? That just doesn't really work financially for you. So therefore, wouldn't it be killer if you could just join an organization or a group or like a federation of brands that are all working together? That I think would be a really healthy entity. And I'd love to see, that occur.
Has that started to happen already?
A little bit, yes, but not. We haven't. It's funny because I've been meeting with multiple companies to try to find a technical solution that allows people to communicate as a group well. So what I'm trying not to do is just have like Facebook groups or something like that, or some feed that you just post to.
Mm-hmm.
I would like it to be. There was a thing that came out, Clubhouse. I'm sure you probably tried it out at some point.
Yeah.
Clubhouse kind of showed that it can work, but I would like it to be more so you can have time shifting. So effectively, someone could do a webinar or something like that, and other people could, that arrive months later can still see it. So that's somehow get some self-service, system to it, so that we're not having to have a huge team of people to do this. So I'm trying to find who's really the tip of the sphere on keeping this easy, so that it doesn't turn into another company that we have to build to do that. And so I've been doing that homework.
Wow, that whole learning platform, that intrigues me massively at the moment. And like you, I've been thinking a lot about that and how that can work generally, and just the general shift and the general changes that I think you see in the whole educational sphere. So simple things like, people doing online courses. I've done online courses. I've sold online courses. I don't know if you got into that whole thing in the past, but part of me thinks that actually there's obviously still a lot of money to be made in online courses and doing that type of thing. But it looks to me like it's sort of moving on. It's sort of evolving from that. And people are sort of moving past the stage where they go, well, actually, I'm not really wanting to spend $2,000 on just watching some guy on a video. I need to have something else. And that I find quite interesting. So how you crack this particular nut, David, do let me know, because I'll be very, very intrigued. That's for sure. It's a whole fascinating thing for me.
I think of the game industry always. So how would the game industry make a training course? I can't tell you how many training courses that are out there, because I'm into photography and lots of different hobbies, and I buy all the training courses. And people are proud of the fact, I'm going to sell you 90 hours of training. Yeah, and I'm I don't want 90 hours. I mean, seriously, I have no interest in that. And so that would be my first suggestion, is the thing that people are willing to pay for, they would even pay more for, is to learn faster. So I was on the board of a high school, and I had that conversation with the headmaster. In a way, you're teaching somebody math, but at what point are you, the teachers, getting together and saying, how can we teach it faster? So, I call it time to aha. So time to go, I got it, right? I get it. I got it. Cool. I get it. And that's, so here's a new concept we're going to teach you today. What's the fastest possible way to get a room full of people to go, aha? And I think that's the future for online education, is people actually putting that effort in to get all of the words and time and wasted nonsense out, and just get to the point. Just tell me. I think you'll find that that's compatible with where the world's going. If you, everyone with teenagers sees how impatient they are now, and they're tapping, it's give the computer a second. It's come on, next. Yeah. It's
totally. You see this with Instagram Reels. I mean, Instagram Reels is blowing up as an organic way of social marketing. It has been for the last few years. You want to be successful in Reels? It's now you've got to do it under 15 seconds. And most people are looking at 7. And you're like, well, hang on a minute. Last year it was 60 seconds and now it's 7. I've got to do you know what I mean? And the whole thing is getting faster and faster and shorter in span. And I can see that, And
what's the online training version of that?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it from anybody yet. Even audiobooks. Oh, this is 36-hour audiobook. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is going to take forever.
How do we do that?
How many times do I have to drive to Los Angeles just to hear this damn audiobook? It's ridiculous. And, the answer is once.
Sit in the traffic 13 hours. No, I'm the same way. I get in the car, I've got an audiobook, and I'm thinking, man, this is going to take 4 weeks to get through. 4 weeks, of my commute's only 20 minutes. So I'm slightly blessed in that area, but it's I see what you mean though. I do see what you mean about faster. And in some respects, that's what you've done with Carro, isn't it? You in effect have got products easier and faster in the hands of people that can sell them, whether that's influencer or other sites. And when you can bring those two things together, convenience and speed, everyone seems interested. But the third thing that you've mentioned or the third thing that I've picked up is this idea then of building a community, a sort of a community of people that can help each other along the way. And this is your dream, and to see that. And I see that in the gaming industry. Every time I walk into you can't see it, but just down there is my little back cinema room at the house, and the kids are in there playing games, but they don't like playing games alone. They want to do it with their friends now online, and so there's that whole community aspect of it, isn't it? And it's like, how do I bring that into the whole fray? And so I just there are going to be some big shifts, some big changes, and I'm really curious to see what they are. And I think, I think you're right. Community will be interesting. Speed will be interesting. Ease will be interesting.
Yeah, it's funny because you watch kids watch other kids play video games, and I remember when that behavior first began. It sounded absurd, right? Wait, you're not playing the game; you're just watching someone else play the game. Like, why would you ever do that? And the reason is because some people, there's always incredibly talented people at everything, and that's my point, right? So in reality, there's you're getting stuck on level 5. Well, just watch his video, fast forward to level 5 and see how he does it. And it's like, to you who've been struggling with level 5 and you just can't solve it. And then you see somebody do it. It's such a valuable moment to you as a gamer, because the stress relief and the when I talk about aha moments, the aha is enormous, right? Oh, that's how you do it. And once you've done that once or twice, watching other people play video games becomes, it's a must have. It's so valuable to see tactics and strategies and skill, especially when you've played the game yourself. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. And so there's a theme there. Again, it's not that they just want to watch they're not just watching people play video games for hours and not playing themselves. They're watching because they're really interested in this individual, how they play, what they're playing, how they're doing what they do, and the skill in which they're dealing with really difficult situations in real time, and seeing how they handle it is fascinating. And so, overall, I'm a big fan of education. So if anyone cracks this, I think they're going to be it's going to be unbelievable, the impact that they can have on education. And I just want to be clear, what I'm not suggesting is cliff notes. I'm not saying take a book and create the cliff notes. It's not that at all. It's to try to think from the beginning. Like, can we get 100 teachers together and find the fastest way to teach something? Yeah. So because there's someone in that group that's really, really good at it, right? Really good. And the others are all like, whoa, I've never thought of it like that either, right? I never taught it like that. I was doing it the old school way. And then they realize that if you do it that way, the download is almost instant. And so you imagine, I would have loved my schooling to for that to have occurred in the background. So I tried to explain it to the school in a different way, because of course it sounds like work. And every time you pitch work, they're like, oh, I don't want to do that because we're all too busy. So I said to them, if a teacher leaves, you lose the IP of all the years that they've been learning how to teach that subject at your school. If you get everyone to work together as a hive mind and build how you teach math, that becomes the intellectual property of the school. So when a new teacher comes in, they can teach this super efficient way. That actually adds value to your school. At some point, you could almost franchise the school if you had that. And suddenly they start listening. Right? Now it's a more interesting conversation. It's kind of fun.
But I think it's the ability to reframe it and think like that, which a lot of people don't have. They just see it. We're just going to get our heads down and get on with the daily grind. The ability just to go, hang on a minute. Here's a traditional route. These are the traditional problems. I can't just do the cliff notes, because that just, the fundamental issues are still there. And so to take a step back, put your head above the parapet, look around and think outside the box, and all the other cliches that we like to throw into this kind of thing. I think that is a skill which is actually very sadly lacking. Despite the rhetoric of a lot of people saying, because it's very trendy, isn't it, to be an entrepreneur? I'm an entrepreneur. But actually, I think someone who is entrepreneurial has the ability to look at a situation in a very different way and see some incredible opportunities. And that's not just an entrepreneur is not someone who's just going to go to AliExpress, buy baby blankets and put them on their website. It just isn't. Do you know what I mean? That's an opportunist.
No, exactly.
More than anything. But to think about it and think about it differently, I think that's entrepreneurial. And I think that's something that I don't actually see a lot of in real life.
For me, it would make me jealous of what you do. So you're getting to talk to lots and lots and lots of different people with different ideas. And so that to me would be really attractive to just that continuous download of different perspectives.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yeah. I genuinely think that I don't care what industry everyone's in, they should set themselves up a podcast and go and talk to every week, just go and talk to someone from their industry who's got a very different way of thinking and just build that knowledge up. So much so, I've not said this out loud, I don't think. We're planning our second so we've got this podcast, the e-commerce podcast. I'm planning a second podcast, which I've kind of got a name. I'm not quite sure I'm going to call it, David, but you'll definitely be invited to be on it because it's going to be talking about the other side of stuff, a bit like what we've done tonight. So we've not focused loads on e-commerce, but we've talked about some really interesting topics around life and business and learning, for example. And I find that actually is deeply fascinating. And just to sit down with somebody and say, what was the biggest challenge you've ever faced? What do you think the biggest opportunity is at the moment? What really excites you? As opposed to tell me 4 ways how I can increase my ROI, which is great. And it's essential if you want to do e-commerce, but I'm also interested in that other stuff. So we're going to do a second podcast and I'm going to get to pick the brains of some more very incredible people.
I mean, it's true. Like that marketing conference I went to, I found exactly that. And if you could, those are the kind of people that you're going to ultimately probably find interesting. So you'll get a guy said, he gave a really nice example. He said he goes into a Facebook group that he's not part of, but he wants to be important in the group. So how do you make yourself important in a group? And he said, well, what I do is I know nothing about the subject, like it's scuba diving. I know nothing about scuba diving, but I see everyone talking about scuba diving. And what I look for is, what are they doing? What are they talking about that's most interesting to them as a group? And so he actually pulls all the keywords, creates tag clouds, looks to see, they seem to be talking a lot about going on diving vacations. Here's a list of the locations they talk about. The one they talk about the most is Mexico. The things they want to do when they go on these diving vacations. Here's a list of all the things they talk about. The number one right now is shark diving. So shark diving in Mexico, if you were to just look at all these conversations together, is the trend. So he actually calls someone in Mexico that does shark diving tours, does a Zoom with him, records it, and then posts it to that group. And the group goes wild, right? The group is, oh my God, this is so interesting. This is fascinating.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
that's absolutely brilliant. That's very, very good customer research. That's what that is.
Yeah. And so you could go in there and say, I like scuba diving too. Good luck with getting important in the group, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, with a little bit of extra research and just thinking outside the box, you can come in and become important almost immediately. And so it's that kind of stuff that I love to hear. I love to hear people that are actually doing things. Like, what are you doing and how are you doing it? Is actually, really interesting. And I think in our case, this idea of sell more together is causing, it's almost like an unlock, saying to you creatively, okay, that's how you would have done it as your own brand, but how would you do it if you had access to other brands in every dimension? So we've worked on a recommendation system, and recommendation systems have been around forever. They look in the store and they just choose products that are similar or go with the thing that you're selling. So if I'm selling an electric toothbrush, it looks in the data and goes, what other electrical things do you have that go with that? You have an electric shaver, boom, that's recommended. It's a terrible recommendation to go with an electric toothbrush. And so we're like, well, what could we do if it's sell more together? We have all of the brands to look at. And so one of the brands installed in our network is Kendall Jenner's Moon Oral Care. And she makes everything to do with, toothpaste and everything else. If we take her toothpaste and put it with your electric toothbrush, that is actually going to be the highest thing that you could do. But a brand wouldn't know that, and they don't have access to even do that. So that's why building this network and getting everyone to work together starts to get really interesting, because even recommendations become interesting. And so now we have AI running on the data, trying to learn every time there's a transaction. So it just gets better and better and better. But in the future, and here's the joke to this, in the future, what's going to occur, which is kind of going to be funny, is that you're going to want to add a certain snowboard and it's going to go, are you sure? So, and as an example, Elon Musk says this about his car. So his ultimate goal was to try to make the car drive safer than a human. So people keep going, oh, but the self-driving isn't perfect, right? Yeah. Do you know how imperfect people's driving is? Yeah. The cars are actually already better than human beings. And so as that continues to get better, let's do 10 more years, at some point, you're going to, if you touch the steering wheel, you're going to add error into the system. You're literally creating a problem by touching the steering wheel. And it will be funny in the future. Be like, please don't touch the steering wheel. Just let the car do it, because I want to get there.
Let it figure it out. Yeah.
Right. And so imagine that in e-commerce, where the data is so accurate because everyone's collaborating, that at some point it's like, if you can put that snowboard, you won't sell as much as if you were to do this, and this, right? And to some extent, we can help augment their ability to choose. Like there's a big I went through a very expensive mall, and one of the stores, everything in the store was based on lemons. So I was like, oh my God, the buyer's gone crazy. Like they think lemons are in, so everything is lemon print, and that's quite the risk to take, right? But given data, we would actually know what would be the best things to go in the store this week. And one of the things we did at one point, we were talking to a major retail store who were interested, and they said to us, "Can you suggest some brands we should work with?" And we looked in the data to see what is the top selling stuff at that week. And the top selling thing was leg makeup. And we all literally went, leg makeup? That's even a thing? Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. But that's what the data allows you to see, right? And so people have never considered selling leg makeup. Well, you should be selling it this week. This is the hottest thing you could sell right now. Probably
this is who can sell it for you. Yeah, this is who can do all the orders for you. Yeah.
And that's because someone probably on social media has been doing some posting that's caused a whole wave of interest.
Big Sandra Bullock or somebody's talking about leg makeup, right?
Yeah.
Oh, David, listen, I've really, really enjoyed this conversation and the different tangents that it's gone. So I genuinely have, and it's been marvelous and fun. If people want to connect with you, if they want to reach out with you, if they want to find out about more about Carro, for example, maybe they want to put it on their site, or maybe they're a brand and they want to get onto it. How do they do that? What's the best thing to do?
Yeah, if you're a brand or an influencer, we're on Shopify. So just go to the Shopify App Store and you'll see Carro there. Or you can go to our website, getcarro, CARRO.com. So get Carro. If you are going to install or going to use it, please reach out to us. Email us at hello@getcarro.com and tell them about this podcast, and they will give you super VIP treatment. So just make sure to reach out if you interact with us. And yeah, it's for influencers. I think there's about if you start now, you're going to be ahead of the 99%. And so my recommendation would be to do that. And one last tip is if you're like, but I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to create a store, I don't know how to do any of this, then there's a page called experts.shopify.com, and there's actually people available that you can hire to do any piece of it that you want. I don't want to manage my store. Okay, somebody else will. I don't want to create my store. Somebody else will. Whatever it is you need, but you can. That's the way to get started.
Fantastic. Well, David, thank you. We'll put all the links to that, to you, to the Carro, and to the experts at Shopify. We'll put all those in the show notes as well. But David, thank you so much. So there you have it. What a great conversation. Huge thanks to David for joining me today. Wasn't he great? Now, don't forget to check out our back catalogue, complete back catalogue. Just head over to ecommercepodcast.net, a revamped website. Yes, you can check that out. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from, because we've got some great conversations lined up and you will not want to miss any of them. And in case no one has told you today, you, my friend, are